My dear loyal brothers, the teacher Mustafa Sungur, one of the young Nur heroes, brought me festival greetings from our brothers in Eflani, Safranbolu, Kastamonu, İnebolu, Daday, and Araç. So, as a young Said, we sent him to those brothers to congratulate them on both the material and the spiritual festival. And we sent diligent Mehmet Çalışkan, the Süleyman Rushdie of Emirdağ, to Istanbul to get the shining lamp and to inquire about the books that are being sent abroad. Having been defeated in every respect, those opposed to the Risale-i Nur are pursuing a plan that on the face of it looks unpleasant for us, but in reality is more beneficial for the Risale-i Nur. They seem to think that they are going to break the solidarity of the Nur students and for some unknowable reason cause some of their leading members to go elsewhere. But if they do go, it is because they are needed in those places and it will not injure their unanimity. For instance, they are the cause of Muharrem going to Tavas, Mustafa Osman to Karabük, and Refet to Istanbul, and of dispersing them. These brothers of ours depart for those places as though voluntarily, but in reality the ground is being prepared imperceptibly with the intention of damaging their solidarity. Another of their schemes is that although according to their principles we deserve to be imprisoned, they appear not to support it and apparently oppose it. The reason for this is that our covert enemies were quite astonished when Denizli prison became a Nur school, and some people who were transferred from there to other prisons started to illuminate them too. That is why they supported our release from prison. Also, acknowledging in a sort of way the justice and rightness of the Risale-i Nur, the judiciary held back in order to avoid the severe objections of the future and disregarded the articles of the arbitrary laws that were prejudicial to us. Some obdurate atheists were defeated in the face of the Risale-i Nur's truth and gave up their obstinacy. And the coward enemies demanded in alarm that we should be released from prison so that the prisons should not turn into Nur schools. That is to say, 3 groups of people supported the unanimous decision for our acquittal. This was a wonder bestowed on the Risale-i Nur by divine providence. Yes, this evening I felt quite certainly that just as 3 of this century's most fearsome commanders had been intimidated, both the Operation Army's commander-in-chief during the 31st of March incident and the foreign commander of the Istanbul occupation forces during the national movement following the First World War, he is being intimidated and not attacking us, and in Ankara in the president's office that awesome leader suppressing his anger and virtually apologizing, and now 3 courts of law justly and conciliatory acquitting us unanimously, although they had previously invoked innumerable pretexts in the face of our fury, impatient defenses, I felt quite certainly that these were a wonder of the Risale-i Nur, which is a sort of miracle of the Qur'an, and so I have written and described it. But it has been sent to you without being corrected, so is in a state of disorder. My dear loyal brothers, firstly, we have received 2 pieces, one, the shining lamp in its entirety, the other, some leftover parts of it. They contain only a few errors. I am sending a short list of them attached to this letter. Secondly, since Sparta is a sort of Madrasatu Zehra, and since up to the present the authorities of that blessed place of learning have behaved leniently, and foremost the police chief have been appreciative of the Risale-i Nur, we look on them as friends, so whatever they do, do not feel affronted or take offense. Moreover, up to now important advantages have been secured as a result of their not pressurizing us unduly. So now it may be opposed to the inner meaning of illuminates discreetly, to disseminate the Risale-i Nur everywhere completely freely, and there may be some advantages in their warnings of caution. Thirdly, in response to the festival congratulations of Hafiz Hasan, who is a prominent teacher in Daday and a valuable publisher of the Risale-i Nur, and the congratulations of his 2 blessed Nurcu children, and of our worthy brothers Dr. Hakkı, Hüsnü, Tahir from Araç, and Fuad from Dadai, we congratulate with all our life and spirit both the past festival and their unwavering successes in the service of the Risale-i Nur. I am forwarding his letter to you to be included in the additional letters. Fourthly, our brother Refat, one of the Nur heroes, has found a brother in Istanbul who is devoted to the Risale-i Nur, a high-ranking Hoja of the greatest importance called Abdulahad, who resembles himself in method. May Almighty God grant them both constant success. Amin. Fifthly, to an extent I have never before seen, when I go out in the Phaeton, innocent children aged 2 to 10 display an extraordinary affection for me and raise up to me from quite a distance and eagerly catch hold of my hands as they would their parents if they had not seen them for a long time. I was astonished at this and wondered about the reason. Then suddenly it occurred to me that with a sort of premonition, these innocent children perceived that in the future they would find happiness through the Risale-i Nur and be saved from moral and spiritual dangers. Indeed, perhaps many of them would become Nur students. I felt that while not living here, although the physical and spiritual climate does not agree with me, and the other exiles have been given their freedom, inferred that they were saying, "We were within the fold of the Risale-i Nur, don't leave us and go." A fine point concerning He. In His name be He glorified, and there is nothing but it glorifies Him with praise. Peace be upon you, and God's mercy and blessings forever and ever. My very dear and loyal brothers, my brothers, I observed in a subtle point concerning God's unity, which suddenly became clear while studying the page of the air on a journey of the imagination and mind, that is, in the word He, who, in the phrases, say, He is God, and there is no God but He, and that was only in its material aspect, that the way of belief is infinitely easy to the point of being necessary, and that the way of misguidance and associating partners with God is infinitely difficult, so difficult as to be impossible. I shall explain that long and extensive point with an extremely brief indication. Yes, if soil, one handful of which can act as a flower pot for hundreds of plants in turn, is attributed to nature or causes, it becomes necessary either for there to be present in such a handful hundreds of immaterial machines, indeed machines and factories to the number of the plants, or for each particle of that small amount of soil to know how to make all those different plants together with their different characteristics and living organs. Quite simply, each would have to possess infinite knowledge and limitless power like a god. The same is true for the air, which is a place of maximum manifestation of the divine will and command. Either there would have to be present on a minute scale in each of its molecules, in each weft of wind, each breath, and in the tiny amount air expanded with the words He, the innumerable different exchanges, senders, receivers, and transmitters of all the telephones, telegraphs, and radios in the world, so that each could perform those innumerable acts at the same time, or else each particle of each molecule of air exalted with He, and indeed of the element air, would have to possess abilities and personalities to the number of all the different telephone users, telegraphers, and those who speak on the radio, and know all their different languages, and broadcast them to the other particles at the same time. For such a situation is actually apparent, and every bit of air possesses that ability. Thus, in the ways of the unbelievers, naturalists, and materialists, not one impossibility, but impossibilities and difficulties are clearly apparent to the number of molecules of air. If attributed to the all-glorious Maker, however, the air together with all its particles becomes a soldier under His command. With its Creator's permission, and through His power, and through being connected to its Creator, and relying on Him, and through the manifestation of its Maker's power, in an instant with the speed of lighting and with the ease of uttering the words He, and the movements of the air in waves, its innumerable universal duties are performed as easily as an orderly, single duty of a single particle. That is to say, the air becomes a page for the endless, wonderful, and orderly writings of the pen of power, and its particles become the nibs of the pen, and their duty is the points inscribed by it. The air functions as easily as the movement of a single particle. Thus, while on my journey of contemplation prompted by the phrases, "There is no God but He," and say, "He is God," and while observing the world of the air and studying the page of that element, I witnessed this brief truth with utter certainty and clarity and in detail. And I understood with knowledge of certainty that it was because there is in the word He, in the air of its utterance, such a brilliant proof and flash of divine unity, and also in its meaning and allusion such a luminous manifestation of divine oneness and powerful proof of divine unity, and in that proof an indication that since the pronoun He is unconditional and indefinite, it suggests the question, who does it refer to, that both the Qur'an of miraculous exposition and those who constantly recite the divine names frequently repeat the sacred words in the station of unity. If, for example, there is one point on a piece of white paper and 2 or 3 other points are jumbled around with it, and then someone who already has numerous jobs tries to distinguish them, he will be confused, and if many burdens are loaded on a small creature, it will be crushed, and if numerous words issue from one tongue and enter one ear altogether at the same time, their order will be broken, and they will all be a muddle. Despite this being the case, I saw with complete certainty that with the key and compass of He, although thousands of different points, letters, and words had been put in each molecule, and even each particle of the element air, through which I journeyed in my mind, neither did they become mixed up, nor did they spoil their order, and although they performed a great many different duties, these were carried out without being confused in any way, and although very heavy loads were laid on each molecule and particle, they bore them in order without lagging or displaying any weakness at all. And I saw that thousands of different words of all different sorts enter and issue with perfect order from what is in effect those minute ears and tones, without being mixed up and spoiled in any way. They enter those minute ears and issue from those tiny tones, and by performing these extraordinary duties, each particle and each molecule declares through the enraptured tongue of its being and its perfect freedom, and through the testimony and tone of the above truth, there is no God but He, and say, He is God, the One, and travels among such air-clashing waves as storms and lightning and thunder without in any way spoiling their order or confusing their duties. One duty is not an obstacle to another duty. I observed this and was utterly certain. That is to say, either every particle and piece of the air has to possess infinite wisdom, knowledge, will, and power, and the qualities for being absolutely dominant over all the other particles, so that it can be the means of those functions being carried out, which is absurd and impossible to the number of particles, and no devil even could imagine it, or else, and it is self-evident to the degree of knowledge of certainty, vision of certainty, and absolute certainty, that the page of the air functions through the boundless, infinite knowledge and wisdom of the all-glorious One, and is the protein page for the pen of divine power and determining, and like a signboard for writing and erasing, known as a tablet of appearance and dissolution, which has the function of the preserved tablet in the world of transformation and change. Thus, just as the element of air demonstrates the above-mentioned wonders and manifestation of divine unity in only the duty of transmitting sound, and shows the impossibilities of misguidance, so does it perform other important duties with order and without confusing them, such as transmitting subtle forces and energy like electricity, light, and the forces of attraction and repulsion. At the same time as conveying this with perfect order, it carries on duties essential for the lives of plants and animals, such as respiration and pollination. It proves in decisive fashion that it is a place of maximum manifestation of the divine will and command. I came to the firm conclusion that it proves that in no way is there any possibility of vagrant chance, blind force, deaf nature, confused and aimless causes, and powerless, lifeless, unknowing matter interfering in the writing and duties of the page of the air. And I understood that every particle and part of it declares with the tongue of its being, there is no God but He, and say, He is God, the One. Just as with the key of He, I saw these wonders in the material aspect of the air, so also as a He did the element air become a key to the world of similitudes and the world of meaning. I have not been inspired to write the rest of this form now. Endless greetings to everyone. Your brother, Said Nursi. My brothers, don't worry. Be content with the Risale-i Nur's extraordinary hidden victories. At no time up to the present has any work spread so effectively in such difficult conditions. The reason it has not been given its complete freedom is that they are scared of its unusual power. Although they recognize and appreciate it, news has been received of the Director of Religious Affairs meeting with the top men, and that they are frightened to have it officially disseminated at present, surmising that it might lead to disturbances. They are not attacking it as formally. Indeed, they want to be conciliatory. God willing, the powerful currents in favor of the Risale-i Nur will turn their unease into the desire to publish it officially. Also, numerous egotistical people do not support the Risale-i Nur's open publication because they are jealous and want to spread their own works. But don't worry, the Risale-i Nur will prevail. My dear loyal brothers, firstly, I have received the Madrasatu Zehra's 20 lessons and gift. In return, in order to assist its sacred lessons, I have sent with Hafiz Mustafa, who is a leading disseminator of the Risale-i Nur, and Hafiz Ali's diligent heir, the 90 liras which is what remains from the salary given me while I performed my scholarly duties in the Darul Hikmet, which at that time I spent on printing the treatises I had written and with which I intended to make the pilgrimage to Mecca, and for 20 to 30 years has been my reserve fund. For me, it has the value of 1,000 liras. The price of these new lessons should be 7.5 liras, the same as the shining lamp and the ratifying stamp of the unseen, for I am obliged to give many people copies as presents. Nevertheless, I look on every single lesson and copy as 1,000 gifts from the leading members of the Madrasatu Zehra. Secondly, the Risale-i Nur is spreading through the Islamic world by means of people making the Hajj and is conveying itself to the worthy. The committee of scholars who studied the handwritten copies of the Staff of Moses and Zulfikar that we sent to Damascus decided that they should print the collections section by section, a sign that they thought highly of them. It would be very expensive to print them in their entirety. Also, it would take a long time to translate them into Arabic, which is not possible. Due to this, my old student who is there and the student I have just sent tried to get the copies of them and did not print them so that they might earn the money. Those brothers are now reading them to people who are eager. Anyway, I am not giving permission for them to be printed. Now is not the time. A group of prominent scholars is needed with the cooperation of Egyptian ulama. This matter was carried out too hastily. Thirdly, the reason the copies we were going to send to Istanbul to send abroad have not yet been sent is that not many people were keen to go on the Hajj, and a person who was going to go and had with him something on trust, said that too much notice was being given to the Hajis at the brothers, and they were being turned back on false pretexts. He wrote to me advising that it would be better to send them by post directly to Mehmed Ali Maliki at Waziye, Mahalle-i Şamiye in Mecca. He did not take them lest he was turned back at the frontier. It was indeed judicious, for to send these collections now in my name and in that of the Nur students might have given Islamic unity, which is anyway now starting to gain strength, and its politics, the idea of trying to use the Risale-i Nur as a source of power for itself and to exploit it, which would have compelled us to consider Islamic politics. Whereas the meaning of true sincerity in the Risale-i Nur's way does not permit it to be made the tool of anything other than belief and the truths of the Qur'an, nor to follow them. Also, the Risale-i Nur does not hunt for customers. Rather, feeling their true need, its customers have to seek out the Risale-i Nur so that it may heal their wants. Whereas the blessed sinners it was going to be sent to should be thinking now not of its true need for the Risale-i Nur, but of those matters concerning the Islamic world's religious life. Also, the Risale-i Nur's way looks on egotism and ostentation as a sort of fame-seeking and rejects them. So, since in this age of egotism, to try to sell oneself and make oneself liked, and for the Nur students to all of a sudden display themselves through these works in famous places as though they were highly privileged would be a sort of ostentation and pretentiousness. To preserve total sincerity, therefore, divine determining does not permit the Nur students to do this at the present time. Fourthly, may Almighty God perpetually bestow His grace on Süleyman Rushdie in his material and spiritual commerce in this world and the next, for he is unwavering in his heroism and loyalty, and with his brother is innocent and has performed invaluable services in a short time. Amin. Fifthly, a fine point concerning he, Hüve Nüktesi, is truly subtle, true, very brief and concise. It has been sent to you, for everyone may perceive the powerful light of belief in it. The phrase, with the tone of being and through the testimony and tone of the above-mentioned truth, is to be added to the sentence near the end. Every particle says with the tongue of its being, there is no God but He, and say, He is God, the One, and travels. The piece on He, together with the imaginary journey related to the verse, God is the light of the heavens, in the 5th section of the 29th letter, and the other imaginary journey explaining the meaning of community through the door of do we worship, in the 6th point of the 1st section of the 29th letter, should be together added at the end of the ratifying stamp of the unseen, or where you deem appropriate. If the inayat, the 7th part of the 28th letter, has not been put in the ratifying stamp, a summary of it may also be added. I am leaving it up to you. My dear loyal brothers, according to what I have heard, Shamsi and certain authors whose names I consider inappropriate to mention are publishing a number of parts of the Risale-i Nur in their own names. I consent to this and forgive them and am pleased. They are students of the Risale-i Nur too and are publishing it in this way. For the past 20 years, many people including high-ranking Hojas and authors have taken numerous parts of the Risale-i Nur and included them in their own works, and they are continuing to do so. I forgive not only such friendly people, but also those holding high positions who write works themselves and do not favor the spirit of the Risale-i Nur and even prevent its publication so that their own works become popular, for their preventing it assists in its conquests and its spreading in other useful ways. I have paid no attention to the present state of affairs and do not know. Without wanting to, I heard that some high officials who compose works and have plagiarized the Risale-i Nur tell others that they may read it but not give it to others, as though the Risale-i Nur will obscure their own works. But the Risale-i Nur affirms the truth in those works and corroborates them and increases demand for them. God willing, sometime they will be compelled to publish it officially. But as the judge in Izmir said, the Risale-i Nur cannot be concealed. It does not resemble other books. No one can claim possession of it. Wherever it is found, it declares, I proceed from the light. Also, for the past 8 years, the most important parts of the Risale-i Nur have been going to Istanbul and have been read enthusiastically by authors. Basically, it seems to belong to everyone on condition they are its students. I have decided to make those blessed brothers who are going on the Hajj from Sparta and have promised to perform it in my stead shareholders in all the spiritual gains accruing in the sphere of the select students. May Almighty God grant them happiness in this world and the next. Amen. Soon, I am going to send the 60 liras remaining from the cost of the staff of Moses, which the Madrasa to Zahra has sent this time. Also, I congratulate the Nurse Trading House. God willing, we shall soon communicate by means of its owner. I send my greetings to everyone. My dear loyal brothers, firstly, I bought 100 copies of a guide for Yov from the publishers for 50 liras, and I gave them some of my own copies of the Staff of Moses, which I had sold. I am sending them to you in lieu of my debt of 60 liras that remains from the cost of the copies of the Staff of Moses, which you last sent to me. You can send 20 or 30 of them to the internal Madrasa to Zahra, and the rest in any amounts you deem suitable to such places as Denizli, Milas, Burdur, Antalya, Aydın, and Izmir. Essentially, the true, all-important price of this is that the person who buys them gets at least 10 other people to read them, because there are only a few copies. Secondly, I liked your defense speech in the court. It is very good. It is also good that the trial has been postponed to the 22nd of December. The parts they are holding are anyway the share of officials. They should read them. If they don't, those parts just being found in the offices near them means that they receive instruction in some way, so don't worry. The unfolding and conquest of the Risale-i Nur are slowly increasing, covering numerous officials. The officials have begun to be curious and are seeking it out. When they find it, they respect it although they receive a slap from it. Thirdly, I was overjoyed by the letter sent by young Ibrahim and Salih, two of the young heroes of Sparta. May God bless them. And just as those two brothers visited our leading brothers in that region and described how they were in their letters, so I have received a fine letter from a new brother describing how such places on the Black Sea coast as Ordu, Sinop, Gerze, Ayancık, Bartın, and Zonguldak are being illuminated by the Risale-i Nur. He says that Nurji preachers in Üsküdar in Istanbul are working at it, and that he himself has a business in Gerze, is most eager for the Risale-i Nur, and has resolved to work wholeheartedly at it. I send many greetings to him and to Ibrahim and Salih, and congratulate them and pray for their success. Fourthly, the Imam of Ala Masjid, our active brother Ibrahim Ethem, has found two preachers, Ali Şentürk and Osman Nuri, who are fully Nurjis like himself. With their sincere, devoted, and resolute services for the Risale-i Nur, the preachers have been admitted to the circle of select students in the way they wished for in their letter. May Almighty God grant them success. Amen. I send many greetings to Ali Rza, the Mufti of that district, who is named in Ali Şentürk's letter. Many valuable brothers so named have entered the fold of the Risale-i Nur, so tell him that he will be a fine example to many people. I send endless greetings to everyone.